A human took in the alien prince's delicate daughter. Now she stands as a mighty fighter. Part 1. The fragile arrival Ethan Cole lived alone on the edge of human space.
His small station floated near a dead moon, far from the crowded trade routes and busy colonies. Most people called this area dangerous, but Ethan liked it. He liked the silence, the slow hum of machines, and the way stars felt like old friends. He repaired ships, traded rare minerals, and sometimes took small missions that no one else wanted.
He liked simple life. No politics, no wars, no obligations.
One quiet morning, Ethan was scanning nearby space for floating debris when his sensors picked up something unusual.
It was a small object, moving slowly toward the moon's surface. At first, he thought it was a rock, but the movement was too controlled. Curiosity pulled him closer.
As he approached, he saw it was a damaged escape pod. Its hull was cracked and smoke escaped from tiny holes.
Ethan's heart beat faster. He had seen pods before, but never one like this.
He knew someone inside might still be alive. Ethan worked quickly. He opened the pod's airlock and carefully lifted the occupant out. Inside, he found a young girl. She was small, not even 10 years old, with pale, almost shimmering skin that looked delicate under the station lights. Her hair was silver white, soft and fine, and her eyes were large and violet.
She looked like a fragile crystal. She was quiet, her lips trembling.
Ethan could feel the fear and pain in her small body. She was barely breathing, weak and frightened.
"Hey, it's okay," Ethan said softly, keeping his voice calm. "I'm Ethan." "You're safe now."
The girl's eyes opened slowly and she looked at him.
She didn't speak. She only stared, as if she didn't know what words were.
Ethan realized that she might not know human language. He gently lifted her into his arms. She was light, almost like holding a fragile doll.
He carried her back to his station, careful not to shake her. Every movement had to be slow, careful.
Once inside, Ethan placed her on a soft bed and ran a medical scan. Her body was weak, but she was alive. Ethan let out a small sigh of relief. She was injured, but she could recover. He had no idea who she was or where she came from, but he knew one thing. He could not leave her there. Someone would come for her. Someone who did not care about her life.
"Do you know your name?"
Ethan asked quietly. The girl looked at him, then whispered something he couldn't understand. The sound was soft, musical, and unfamiliar.
Ethan tried again. "Can you say it slowly?" She repeated the same sound, and he realized it might be her name. "Lyra," he said slowly, testing the sound. She nodded weakly, and a small smile flickered across her face. He smiled back. "All right, Lyra. We'll start with that. We'll take things slow."
For the next few days, Ethan cared for Lyra. He fed her nutrient paste, kept her warm, and cleaned her wounds. She barely spoke, but she watched him carefully. Her eyes were always alert, always observing. Ethan noticed she had a strange intelligence in her gaze. She was small and fragile, but her mind seemed sharp. She noticed every sound, every movement, every change in light. It was unusual for someone so young. As she healed, Ethan began teaching her simple human words.
"This is water,"
he said, holding a cup.
"Drink."
She mimicked him slowly, and the first words she spoke clearly were, "Water." Ethan laughed softly, a sound she seemed to enjoy. She tried again and again, her voice weak but determined. Little by little, she began to communicate. Simple words became phrases. Phrases became short sentences. Ethan was patient. He had time, and he wanted to give her the care she needed. But even as she learned, Ethan sensed something unusual about her. There were moments when she seemed older than her years. When she looked at the stars, her eyes seemed to remember things she should not know. She sometimes muttered words in her own language, words that made no sense to Ethan. He could not understand them, but they felt important. She remembered her past, he realized, but it was fragmented. A memory of a palace, a voice calling her name, shadows moving in darkness, fragments of a life far away. One evening, Ethan found her staring out a small viewport.
"What do you see?" he asked.
"Home," she whispered. Ethan stopped. He had not expected her to speak of anything like that.
Home? He asked carefully. She nodded, tears welling in her violet eyes.
Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. We'll find peace here first. One step at a time, he said softly. She nodded again, but her expression was distant, lost in thought. The weeks passed. Ethan fixed ships, traded supplies, and slowly Lyra grew stronger. Her body was still delicate, but she could walk on her own. She learned to prepare simple meals, to clean, and to help in small ways around the station. Her curiosity grew too. She asked questions about human life, about stars, about why people fight wars. Ethan answered as best he could. He did not lie, but he softened truths. She was too young to know about the cruelty in the galaxy. One day, while scanning the nearby sector, Ethan noticed strange readings. Small ships moving fast, scanning for life signatures. He frowned. They were not human. Their patterns were too precise, too coordinated. Someone was searching for something. Someone. Ethan's stomach tightened. Could they be looking for Lyra? He did not want to believe it, but everything pointed to yes. He prepared defenses quietly. The station had basic shields and a few small weapons. Ethan was no soldier, but he had survived many dangers. He also began teaching Lyra how to stay safe. Not fighting, not yet, just awareness. Listen carefully, he said. Know where the exits are. Know what sounds are normal. Your senses are your first defense. She listened, eyes wide but focused. Ethan felt a strange pride. She was small, fragile, but determined. The next attack came quietly. A small scouting ship appeared near the moon's surface, cloaked in darkness. Ethan saw it on the monitor. Lyra, stay here, he said firmly, but she shook her head. I want to help, she said. Her voice was soft, but steady. Ethan hesitated, then nodded. She could not fight physically, but she could observe, learn, and follow instructions. Together, they prepared. Ethan set traps and alarms while Lyra memorized escape paths, hiding places, and signals. It was a dangerous game, but she absorbed every detail. When the raiders arrived, Ethan's traps delayed them. They did not know he had a passenger, a delicate alien girl who might one day be a fighter. Ethan fought with all his skill, using speed, traps, and cunning. Lyra followed instructions perfectly, warning him of movements, signaling when danger was near. The two of them worked as a team, strange but effective. The raiders finally left, frustrated, unable to reach their target. After the attack, Ethan held Lyra close. You were amazing, he said. She looked up at him, eyes bright. I want to be stronger, she said simply. Ethan smiled, a mixture of pride and concern. She was still a child, still delicate, but her determination was clear. He knew then that she would not stay fragile forever. She would grow, in body and in spirit, shaped by challenges and care. That night, they watched the stars together. Ethan felt a strange sense of responsibility deeper than he had ever felt. He had taken in a child from another world, a child who could have changed the course of entire wars if left in the wrong hands. Now she was safe, but the galaxy was vast and danger would come again. He did not know how or when, but he knew he would protect her. No matter what. And Lyra, small and delicate, stared at the distant stars. She did not fully understand what awaited her, but a spark had been lit inside her. She would survive. She would grow. And one day she would not be the fragile girl Ethan found in that pod. She would become something more. Something strong. Something the galaxy would remember. Time passed slowly on Ethan's small station. The days blurred together, filled with routine and small tasks. Lyra had grown stronger, though she remained delicate compared to human children. Her silver-white hair had grown longer, and her violet eyes shone with curiosity and intelligence. She watched Ethan as he worked, learning from every movement, every word, every gesture. Ethan began teaching her more than just words. He showed her how to repair small machines, how to read star charts, and how to manage basic survival on a station that was far from any help. Lyra's mind absorbed everything quickly. She had a hunger for knowledge that surprised Ethan. Most children, human or alien, would lose focus after a few minutes, but Lyra stayed alert, studying every detail, remembering each instruction.
"Look here," Ethan said one morning, pointing at a broken sensor. "If you replace this circuit, it should work again." He handed her a small tool.
Lyra's hands were tiny and careful, moving with precision. She examined the circuit, nodded, and began working slowly but efficiently. Within minutes, the sensor hummed to life. Ethan raised his eyebrows.
"Not bad," he said, a rare smile forming. "You have a good mind for this."
Lyra smiled faintly, though she did not speak much. Her voice was soft, musical, and still hesitant, but she began forming short sentences more easily. She asked questions about everything.
Why do stars shine? Why do people fight? Why do humans eat food from plants and animals?
Ethan answered carefully, trying to explain the galaxy in simple terms. He avoided heavy topics like wars or politics, but he did not lie. He wanted her to understand the universe without losing hope or innocence. They also shared quiet moments of play. Ethan had found a small collection of human books, simple stories about faraway lands, heroes, and friendship. Lyra loved them. She would sit in a corner, holding a book, tracing the letters with her fingers, repeating words aloud. Sometimes she would read a sentence perfectly, and Ethan would clap softly. She would giggle at his small celebrations, a sound like wind chimes in a calm breeze. Despite the peaceful days, Ethan knew danger could come at any time. He had repaired his station's shields, stored weapons carefully, and created secret rooms and escape routes. He also began teaching Lyra basic safety rules.
"Listen carefully," he said one evening. "Never assume silence is safe. Know where exits are. Know what noises are normal. Pay attention to everything."
Lyra nodded. She took these lessons seriously, practicing with him as they went through drills and routines. Even as she learned, fragments of her past occasionally returned. She sometimes spoke words in her own alien language, whispers of names, places, and events she could not fully recall. One night, she stood before a viewport staring at the distant stars. Ethan watched her quietly. "Ethan," she said softly.
"I remember something. A palace. Lights. People. Yelling."
Her voice trembled. Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder.
"Don't worry. You are safe now.
We will make new memories. One step at a time."
She nodded, but her eyes were distant. Ethan understood that Lyra's past could not be erased.
It was a part of her.
Over time, Ethan realized that Lyra was not just learning human ways, she was changing.
Her body, though still small, was becoming more coordinated. Her movements were graceful, precise, and fast. She had a natural agility that even Ethan could not explain. He noticed her observing animals in nearby simulations, mimicking their motions, improving her balance and reflexes. It was subtle at first, but it impressed him. She was becoming more than fragile.
She was becoming capable. Ethan also began teaching her how to defend herself.
"Not with weapons yet, but with awareness and speed. Watch and listen," he said during one exercise. "Always know where you are. Always know where others are. Your body is your first defense." Lyra practiced every day.
She learned to move quietly, to sense danger, and to react quickly. Ethan marveled at her focus and determination. She absorbed lessons faster than most adults could. As weeks turned into months, Lyra's bond with Ethan deepened. She no longer only saw him as a protector. She saw him as a teacher, a guide, and a friend. She began asking more personal questions.
"Why did you take me in?"
she asked one afternoon while sitting beside him in the station's observation deck. Ethan looked at her thoughtful.
"'Cause you needed someone. And because I could. It was the right thing to do,"
he said simply. She nodded, her small hands folded in her lap.
"I want to help you," she whispered. Ethan smiled.
He knew she meant it, though he did not realize how much she would change in the coming years. One day, strange signals appeared near the station. Ethan noticed them while scanning the sector. A small alien patrol had entered the area looking for something. Ethan's stomach tightened. Could they be searching for Lyra? He quickly reviewed the scans, comparing life signs, and realized the answer was likely yes. He moved silently, keeping Lyra unaware of the immediate danger. "We might have visitors soon," he said carefully, testing her awareness. Lyra's violet eyes sharpened. She watched the sensors with intensity, her senses alert. Ethan gave her small instructions. "Remember what we practiced. Watch, listen, and stay calm." She nodded, her expression serious. Ethan felt pride but also fear. She was still young and fragile compared to trained fighters, but her mind and determination were strong. When the patrol appeared, Ethan managed to hide the station's life signs and avoid direct confrontation. The aliens searched nearby space, scanning every rock and ship, but they left without finding Lyra. Ethan breathed a quiet sigh of relief. Lyra looked up at him. "Did they come for me?" she asked softly. Ethan nodded, keeping his voice steady.
"Yes, but you are safe."
We were ready. She absorbed the information quietly, but her eyes glowed with determination. She was no longer just a fragile child. She was learning the rules of survival. In the quiet evenings, Ethan and Lyra would sit together, looking at distant stars. Lyra often spoke of her dreams. "I want to see the galaxy," she said one night. "I want to know what is out there. I want to be strong." Ethan studied her. She was no longer only a child who needed protection. She had a spark of determination, a desire to grow beyond her limits. "You will be strong," Ethan said gently. "But strength comes step by step. Patience, practice."
Experience. Lyra smiled faintly, her eyes shining.
She listened carefully, every word shaping her mind. She began to imagine herself not just surviving, but thriving. She dreamed of learning to defend herself, of moving freely through space, of being capable of anything. As months passed, Lyra continued to grow in body, mind, and spirit. She learned to read, to understand simple machines, to navigate the station, and to react to dangers. Ethan taught her patience, careful thinking, and observation. He also taught her small ways to defend herself, ducking quickly, using cover, avoiding attacks, and moving silently. Every skill, every lesson brought her closer to becoming a fighter. One day, while repairing an external panel, Lyra slipped and almost fell into space. Ethan caught her quickly, heart racing. "You must always pay attention," he said firmly. Lyra looked at him seriously, nodding. "I will," she whispered. Ethan realized that her mind had already learned to anticipate danger, even if her body was still delicate. She had the instincts of a survivor. Despite the safety of the station, Ethan knew the time would come when Lyra could not remain hidden. The galaxy was too vast, and enemies of her family would not give up. He began to prepare her in small ways, teaching her not just to survive, but to think strategically. "Imagine every choice before you act," he said. "Plan, observe. Be patient. Sometimes the mind is stronger than the body." Lyra absorbed every lesson, her violet eyes never leaving him. She wanted to be ready for whatever might come. As the first years on the station passed, Lyra transformed. She was still small and delicate, but her intelligence, awareness, and determination grew daily. She learned human ways, but she also remembered fragments of her alien heritage. She was a bridge between two worlds, fragile yet strong in mind. Ethan watched her closely, proud but cautious. He knew the day would come when Lyra would face dangers he could not protect her from. But for now, she was learning, growing, and becoming ready for the wider galaxy. And in the quiet nights, as stars twinkled far away, Lyra whispered to herself, "I will be strong. I will protect myself. I will not be fragile forever. Ethan did not hear her, but he had already seen the spark in her eyes. It was the spark of a fighter hidden inside a delicate child waiting to shine. Part 3. Training the Impossible. The quiet days on the station slowly changed.
Ethan could feel it before anything happened.
The galaxy felt closer, heavier, as if danger was slowly moving toward them. Lyra was no longer a small, silent child. She had grown taller, her movements more controlled, her eyes sharper. She still looked delicate, but there was strength in the way she stood and watched her surroundings. Ethan decided it was time to teach her more. Hiding was no longer enough. From now on, Ethan said one morning, we train seriously, not to fight wars, but to survive anything. Lyra nodded without hesitation. She had been waiting for this moment. Fear still lived in her, but it no longer controlled her. Training began with the body. Ethan knew Lyra's body was not built like a human's, so he adjusted everything. They started with balance and movement. Lyra practiced walking narrow paths, jumping short distances, and landing softly. At first, she stumbled often. Her muscles were weak, and her breathing became fast. Ethan always stopped her before she collapsed. Slow, he reminded her. Strength grows with time, not pain. Lyra listened. She learned to rest when needed and push only when ready. Days turned into weeks. Her balance improved. She moved more smoothly, almost like she was floating. Her alien body adapted in strange ways. Instead of growing heavy muscle, her body became flexible and fast. Her reflexes sharpened. She could dodge sudden movements and react without thinking. Ethan added awareness drills. He would create sudden sounds, moving objects, or sudden light changes. Lyra learned to sense danger before it fully appeared. She learned to trust her instincts. Sometimes she reacted faster than Ethan expected. How did you know? He asked once. Lyra paused, searching for words. I feel it, she said simply, like the air changes. Ethan nodded. He had never experienced that himself. Next came endurance. Not running long distances, but holding positions, staying alert for hours, and controlling breathing.
Lyra struggled at first, her body tired easily.
But she did not give up. Every failure only made her more focused. She hated feeling weak, but she never complained. One night, Ethan found her practicing alone, repeating movements again and again. You should rest, he said gently. I need to be ready, Lyra replied. Her voice was calm but firm. Ethan realized something important. She was no longer training because he told her to. She was training because she chose to. As her body changed, her mind grew even sharper. Ethan taught her strategy. Simple ideas first. Never rush. Always observe. Know your enemy. Know yourself. Lyra loved these lessons. She asked many questions and imagined different situations. She learned to think several steps ahead. Sometimes, fragments of her past returned during training. Certain movements felt familiar to her. Certain stances came naturally. Even when Ethan had not taught them once, she moved in a way that surprised him. Where did you learn that? He asked. Lyra frowned. I don't know, she said softly. It feels old, like a memory. Ethan suspected her people had their own form of training. Even delicate species needed protection, whatever her past was. It was waking up. Then came the day everything changed. Ethan was repairing an external panel when the station alarm screamed to life. Multiple ships appeared on the scanners. Not scouts, not patrols. Hunters! Lyra, hide! Ethan shouted, but it was already too late. The ships moved fast, cutting through space with purpose. Their weapons powered up. Ethan ran inside, sealing doors and activating shields. Explosions shook the station. Lyra held onto a support beam, her heart racing. Fear threatened to take over, but she forced herself to breathe slowly, just as Ethan had taught her. The attackers breached an outer section. Ethan grabbed a weapon and moved to intercept them. Lyra followed instructions and stayed hidden, watching through cameras.
But there were too many. One attacker broke through toward Lyra's section.
For the first time, Lyra was alone. Her hands trembled, but her mind stayed clear.
She remembered everything. Stay quiet. Stay low. Use the environment.
She moved silently, her small body fitting easily into tight spaces. When the attacker entered the room, Lyra did not panic. She waited. As the attacker turned, Lyra dropped from above, striking with speed and precision.
She did not use strength. She used balance, surprise, and timing. The attacker fell, stunned, not dead. Lyra backed away, breathing hard, shocked by what she had done.
Ethan arrived moments later and froze.
"Lyra," he said quietly. She looked at him, eyes wide.
"I didn't want to," she whispered. "But I had to." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did exactly right."
Together they escaped deeper into the station.
Ethan triggered an emergency jump, tearing the station out of normal space. The attackers were left behind, but the damage was severe. Systems failed. Lights flickered. Silence returned, heavy and frightening. Afterward, Lyra sat quietly, staring at her hands.
"I hurt someone," she said. "You defended yourself," Ethan replied.
"There is a difference." She nodded, but the weight of the moment stayed with her. Something inside her had changed. The line between training and reality was gone. Over the next days, repairs kept Ethan busy.
Lyra helped where she could, but she was quieter than usual. Ethan did not push her.
He knew she needed time to process what had happened. Eventually, she spoke.
"They will come again," she said. "Yes," Ethan agreed. "They will. Then I need to be stronger," Lyra said. "Not just fast, not just smart, stronger inside."
Ethan looked at her carefully. She was no longer a child asking for protection. She was someone preparing for war, even if she did not want it.
Training changed after that. Ethan began teaching controlled combat. Not killing, but disabling, using leverage, movement, and precision.
Lyra learned quickly. Her body moved faster than expected. Her reactions became sharper. She could predict movements before they fully happened. Ethan realized something shocking. Lyra was not just adapting to training. Her body was evolving. Stress and danger were changing her at a deep level. Her species might have been delicate once, but under human methods, something new was emerging. Lyra also began training her mind in control. Meditation, breathing, emotional control. She learned not to let fear cloud her thoughts.
Anger did not guide her. Focus did.
"Strength is choice," Ethan said one evening. "Not rage." She remembered that. Months passed. Lyra grew into a quiet force.
She did not boast. She did not seek conflict.
But when danger appeared, she did not freeze. She acted. One night, she stood before the viewport again, stars reflected in her eyes. "Ethan," she said, "what if my people find me?" "Then we face it together," he replied.
"What if they want me to be something I am not?" she asked.
Ethan paused.
"Then you decide who you are."
Lyra nodded slowly. That answer mattered more than he knew. Deep inside her, something settled. She was no longer just a lost child or a hidden survivor.
She was becoming a fighter, shaped by care, patience, and hard truth. And somewhere in the galaxy, forces were already whispering her name. Part 4. The galaxy takes notice the station could no longer stay hidden.
Too many systems were damaged, and supplies were running low. Ethan knew the truth even before he said it out loud.
Staying in one place would get them killed.
"We have to move," he told Lyra one morning. Lyra did not argue. She had felt it too. Danger followed patterns, and their pattern had become clear.
Enemies knew they existed. Hiding forever was no longer possible.
Ethan plotted a slow path through outer systems, choosing places forgotten by major powers, old trade posts.
Broken colonies, neutral zones where laws were weak and survival depended on reputation.
He taught Lyra how to read these maps, how to understand which places were safe and which were traps.
The galaxy speaks, he said, not with words, but with movement.
Lyra listened carefully. Their first stop was a remote station used by traders and smugglers. It was crowded, noisy, and full of strangers. Lyra stayed close to Ethan, her senses alert. This was the first time she had seen so many beings at once. Different shapes, different voices, different ways of moving. Some stared at her. Others whispered. Ethan noticed immediately. He placed himself between Lyra and the crowd, but she was calm. She observed without fear.
Trouble came faster than expected. A group of armed mercenaries blocked their path near a docking corridor.
Their leader was tall, wearing heavy armor, his voice rough.
That girl, he said. She doesn't belong here.
Ethan's hand moved slightly, ready. Lyra touched his arm.
Wait, she said softly. She stepped forward.
The mercenary laughed. You think you can talk your way out? Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes steady.
We are leaving. You don't need to stop us.
The mercenary raised his weapon.
Everything happened quickly. Lyra moved.
She slipped past the first strike, used the wall for balance, and knocked the weapon aside with precise force. She moved exactly as she had trained. Fast.
Clean. Controlled.
The mercenary hit the ground stunned. The corridor went silent. Ethan stared. So did everyone else. Lyra stepped back beside Ethan, her breathing steady. No anger.
No fear. Just focus.
They left without another word. By the time they reached their ship, rumors had already begun. A small alien girl. Delicate.
Fast. Impossible.
The galaxy listened. Over the next months, they traveled carefully. In each place, Lyra learned something new. How different cultures thought. How power worked. How fear controlled many decisions. She also learned that humans were not the only ones who respected strength with restraint. Sometimes trouble found them.
Each time, Lyra handled it with more confidence. She never sought fights, but she never ran when escape was impossible.
She disabled attackers without killing them. Word spread quickly. People began to recognize her. Some called her the Silver Shadow. Others called her the Quiet Blade. Ethan did not like the attention, but he could not stop it. One day they were caught in the middle of a conflict between a human trade convoy and an alien patrol. Both sides were nervous. Weapons were ready. One wrong move could start a battle. Lyra stepped forward before anyone else could act.
Stop, she said.
Her voice was calm, but it carried. Everyone froze. She spoke simply.
No one here wants to die. Step back. Lower your weapons.
For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, weapons lowered. Leaders from both sides stared at her, confused and uneasy. A human captain whispered, "Who is she?" An alien officer replied, "Someone trained by humans." The standoff ended without blood. That moment changed everything. Stories spread faster now.
Not just about her fighting, but about her control, about her choosing peace when violence was easier.
Some began to see her as a symbol. Others saw her as a threat. Ethan worried.
Symbols attract attention, he warned.
Lyra understood.
But hiding changes nothing, she replied.
One night, they received a message. Encrypted.
Ancient. Alien.
It was meant for Lyra! Ethan watched her read it, her face still.
"It's from my people," she said quietly. "From those who survived."
The message spoke of her father, the exiled prince.
Hunted. Broken.
Still alive, and it spoke of enemies who now feared her. Ethan said nothing. Lyra looked at the stars.
They know who I am now.
Yes, Ethan replied. The galaxy knows too. With that knowledge came danger.
Bounty hunters appeared. Spies followed them.
Some tried to capture her alive. Others tried to kill her quickly.
Lyra adapted. She learned how to disappear in crowds, how to use shadows without fear, how to protect Ethan as much as he protected her.
One attack nearly succeeded. A hunter struck during a supply stop.
Fast, skilled, deadly. Ethan was wounded.
Lyra fought alone. She used everything she had learned.
Speed, balance, strategy, emotional control.
When it ended, the hunter lay unconscious. Lyra stood over him, shaking. Ethan survived, but recovery took time. During those days, Lyra stayed by his side.
You saved me, he said weakly. You taught me how, she replied.
When Ethan healed, something had changed between them. Not distance.
Trust! Deeper than before.
Ethan finally said what he had avoided. You don't need me to survive anymore.
Lyra looked at him.
I need you to choose, she said.
He smiled. They could not avoid the truth. Her path was leading somewhere larger. Something unavoidable. A coalition of systems sent an invitation. They wanted to meet her, to understand what she was.
They are afraid, Ethan said.
They should be, Lyra replied softly.
But not of violence, of change.
When they arrived, leaders stared at her, small.
Calm, quiet.
This was not what they expected. They asked questions.
Who trained you? Why do you fight? Who do you serve?
Lyra answered simply.
I serve myself. I fight only when there is no other choice.
I was trained by a human who believed I could be more. Silence followed. Some leaders nodded. Others whispered. From that day on, her name became known across systems.
Not as a weapon, but as proof.
Proof that strength was not born from blood or size, but from choice, discipline, and care. Ethan watched her stand before the galaxy and realized something important. The fragile girl he had found in an escape pod was gone. In her place stood someone the galaxy could not ignore. And this was only the beginning. Part 5. Strength redefined, Lyra had changed. The delicate child Ethan found in the escape pod was now gone. In her place stood a young warrior, small in size but mighty in mind and spirit. Her violet eyes were sharp, alert, and full of determination. She had faced danger, survived impossible situations, and learned to command respect without raising her voice. The galaxy had noticed. The stars themselves seemed to carry her name. Yet Lyra knew the real challenge was coming. The enemies of her family were still out there. Those who had hunted her father, who had wanted her captured or killed when she was small, were still alive. Their power had grown, and they would not forgive the past. Lyra felt it in every system she passed, in every shadow that moved too quickly, in every whisper she heard in crowded spaceports.
We cannot hide anymore, Ethan said one evening as they prepared to leave a neutral trade station. They will find you.
It is only a matter of time.
Lyra nodded. I am ready, she said simply. She had trained for this. Her body was strong, her mind sharper than ever, and her instincts perfect. But she also carried something more, a calm understanding that strength was not just about fighting.
It was about choice, control, courage. Their journey took them to the edges of known space, to planets few humans had visited. They gathered information, allies, and supplies.
Each place tested Lyra's patience and skill. Sometimes she faced hostile beings, sometimes she faced betrayal. Each time she reacted with precision. She never overreacted, never acted in anger. Her actions were deliberate, careful, and always effective. Ethan watched her closely. He could not be with her in every moment of danger, but he knew she had grown beyond his protection. She was no longer his responsibility alone.
She was capable of surviving the galaxy on her own. Then came the day Lyra had feared and expected.
A fleet appeared in the system they were passing through. Sleek ships, armed and fast, surrounded them. The leader's emblem was unmistakable. Her father's enemies.
The ones who had driven him into exile.
The ones who had wanted her gone.
They found us,
Ethan said, tension in his voice.
We have to run. Lyra shook her head. No, it ends now.
Ethan stared at her. She had grown strong enough to make her own choices, even when they frightened him. She gave him a small nod, and he understood.
She would face them. She would define her own path.
The enemy ships fired warning shots. Alarms rang through their ship. Lyra moved calmly. She did not panic. She ran systems checks, prepared shields, and used every trick Ethan had taught her. She calculated the enemy's speed, their trajectory, and their weak points. Then she acted. Her ship darted between asteroids, using the environment to confuse the enemy. She moved with precision, faster and smoother than anyone could have expected. When enemy fighters approached too closely, Lyra disabled them with careful strikes, never killing unnecessarily, but always ending the threat. The enemy fleet faltered. They had underestimated her.
A delicate girl, yes, but one who moved like a force of nature. They realized too late that she was not fragile, not weak, and not unprepared.
She had become the very thing they feared most, strong, disciplined, and fearless. Finally, the lead ship came forward. Lyra engaged them directly. It was a dangerous dance of speed and skill. Weapons fired. Shields flashed. Alarms screamed. But through it all, Lyra remained calm. She remembered Ethan's lessons. Strategy first. Observation second. Strength last. With a careful move, she disabled the lead ship's engines, forcing it to retreat. The rest of the fleet followed. Her enemies had no choice but to flee. They had learned a lesson they would never forget. Lyra was not a child. She was a fighter, a symbol, and a master of her own fate. After the battle, Lyra stood at the viewport of her ship, looking at the fleeing enemy fleet. Ethan came beside her.
You did it,
he said quietly.
No, Lyra replied. We did it! Together!
Ethan smiled. She had learned more than combat. She had learned leadership, courage, and the power of choosing how to act. She had faced death and fear, and she had emerged stronger without losing herself. Word of her victory spread quickly. Messages arrived from human systems, alien enclaves, and even neutral traders. Some offered support.
Others sought alliances. A few enemies reconsidered their pursuit.
Lyra had changed the balance of power simply by being who she was, a human-trained warrior who chose her own strength. Then came the final message from her father's remaining allies. Her father, the exiled prince, was alive but weakened. They requested her presence. Lyra knew this would be the true test, not just skill, but heart. She had to face the past, reconcile her history, and prove she was more than a fragile daughter. When they arrived at the secret planet, Lyra saw him. Her father, older than she remembered from memories, but still strong in presence. He looked at her with disbelief, respect, and pride.
Lyra, he said softly, you have become something I could never have imagined.
Lyra stepped forward. Father, she said, I am not just your daughter.
I am someone who survived, who chose strength, who fights when it matters. He studied her.
You were trained by humans?
Yes, she replied, and by my own choices.
Her father nodded slowly. Then you are ready?
Ready for what? She did not ask. She already knew.
Ready to defend herself. Ready to lead.
Ready to change the galaxy in her own way. Together, they plan the future. Her father's enemies still existed, but now Lyra's presence shifted the balance. She was no longer a target.
She was a force. Humans, aliens, and even those who once doubted her began to recognize her abilities, wisdom, and calm authority.
Lyra also understood something deeper. Strength was not just about fighting.
It was about knowing when to act, when to wait, and how to protect those you care for. She had learned to use her mind, her skill, and her instincts in harmony.
She had learned compassion. She had learned patience. She had learned that being mighty did not mean being cruel or reckless. Ethan watched her from nearby, quietly proud. She had surpassed even his hopes. The delicate child he rescued had become a powerful young warrior, capable of shaping her destiny and influencing the galaxy. Yet she had not lost herself. She remained kind, careful, and thoughtful. She had taken the best of both worlds, human resilience and alien instinct, and combined them into something new, something remarkable. In the months that followed, Lyra worked to rebuild what had been lost. She helped her father reclaim allies, protect survivors, and defend territories. She became a symbol for those who had no strength, proof that even the most fragile could become unbreakable. Systems began to trust her judgment. Battles were won not just by power, but by clever planning, observation, and restraint, her trademarks. And through it all, Lyra remembered Ethan's lessons.
"Strength is choice," he had said. She lived by that. She chose courage. She chose action. She chose patience.
She chose to protect, to lead, and to fight only when necessary. Finally, she stood on a balcony overlooking the stars. The galaxy stretched endlessly before her. The fleets she had once feared were now allies. Systems she had only dreamed of exploring were within reach. She thought of the child she once was, the fragile, lost girl in a pod, and smiled softly. She had grown far beyond that. She had survived.
She had thrived. She had become mighty.
And somewhere deep inside, she felt the truth of it all. No matter what the galaxy threw at her, no matter how many enemies, challenges, or impossible tasks lay ahead, she would endure.
She would stand. She would fight. She would protect those she cared for. She would define strength on her own terms.
Ethan came to stand beside her. He placed a hand on her shoulder and she looked at him.
"You've done more than survive," he said. "You've changed the galaxy." Lyra nodded. "I did not do it alone, but I am ready for what comes next." Together, they looked out into the stars. The galaxy was vast, full of dangers and possibilities, but Lyra was no longer fragile. She was not just a daughter of an alien prince. She was a fighter, a leader, and a symbol. She was proof that even the most delicate life could rise to greatness, and in the quiet hum of the station and the soft glow of distant suns, Lyra finally understood what it meant to be strong. Strength was not in size, not in blood, not in fear. Strength was in choice, in courage, in endurance, in heart. And she had all of it.